What do you think about the moral standard, though? Because I know some of the Austrians have
Oh
written
yeah,
the monetary standard and the moral standard are inexorably linked. We know that civilization is a reflection of time preference. We've already outlawed or outlined how some of these aspects of fiat law and fiat money increase our
right.
time preference. What do you think? Do you think we have
Yeah,
a renaissance of some kind?
yeah, I do. So that I forgot to go into that. I think Guido Holzman's written a little bit of this on the ethics of money production, but really one good essay people who are interested in this should read is by Paul Cantor, who's an Austrian influenced cultural critic, and he wrote a paper in the Review of Austrian Economics called "Hyperinflation and Hyperreality." Something in light of Thomas Mann, but he goes into how there's so many corrosive cultural and psychic and social effects of this inflationary period that we live in, right? It changes the character of the people. Like I said earlier, I wonder if the idea of borrowing will just fade away. People have high time preference now, live in the moment because the future is so uncertain and could be so bad, right? So people spend and they're more materialistic. They're more focused on using their money now. They live paycheck to paycheck because might as well spend it because this money's worth less all the time. I do think it can have a radically transformative effect on character. I'm reminded a little bit, again, of the fractional reserve debate. One of the arguments the free bankers make as to why we need fractional reserve banking is they believe that with a fixed supply money or with deflation, price deflation, which I think is a good thing. I think price deflation is a good thing. That means your money's real purchasing power is going up over time. They think one problem with that is that it would cause economic dislocations and therefore make us more poorer because there's a phenomenon which they call sticky downward wages. So they imagine that if there's an increase in the demand to borrow money, for example, in a fixed money supply world, you can't just print more money or you can't lower the reserve ratio in fractional reserve banking to make more credit available for them to borrow. The only way to do it effectively is to increase interest rates and to basically cut the wages of workers. And they believe workers are psychologically stuck on whatever their pay is. So let's say you're being paid 0.3 Bitcoins a year for your job. Let's be optimistic. 0.1 Bitcoins a year for your job. Well, that's $1 million. No, 0.01 Bitcoins a year, whatever, right? You're being paid a certain amount of Bitcoins per year as your wage, your salary. And if the company has to cut it by 5%, even if that 5%, that 95% of Bitcoin next year is worth more than the one now, they think you'd be reluctant to do that. You're going to resist it. And therefore, it's going to cause economic dislocation. Now, I think that's crazy. I think people are not stupid. If you tell someone, every year your wage goes down a little bit. It has to because there's more people every year. But you can buy more and more with it. You're richer every year. People can do the math. They're not stupid.
Right.
But they're imagining people like they are now. Their whole character's been corrupted by this expectation of inflation. People expect a wage raise every year, cost of living raise every year. That's crazy, right? We're so used to that. I think people's character would change pretty quickly and for the better. And it would have all kinds of cascading effects. I think in a way, I kind of believe Bitcoin fixes this too. Bitcoin in a way could fix the law, right? Because like I said, if Bitcoin cuts off the ability of the government to deficit finance and it makes us richer because of that, and also because it gets rid of the business cycle, and it makes the government less able to enforce these stupid legislative schemes. Again, it's going to cripple their ability to enact laws that are artificial legislative schemes that require lots of artificial fiat money to fund.
Yeah, well said. It's I do view that to be the greatest promise of Bitcoin, is that it's just inhibitory to coercion, right? In general, we just are able to build relationships and modes of human organization that are less coercive in nature.
Well, let's take the drug. Why do we have the drug war? Because the government um, impoverishes people. So it creates slums and welfare, ghettos and impoverished class, and it helps them with welfare, basically, right? Public schools and other forms of welfare, which it pays for with the fiat money system, right? So the average person, the average voter, like, okay, well, I'm not paying for it. They don't realize they're paying for it by price inflation, right? Or then they put them in prison, and how are the prisons paid for? Not really with our tax dollars, because the government's running a deficit, right? So again, if the government had to actually pay direct welfare payments to these people and all the costs of prison, and had to tax everyone for that, your average sort of amoral, conservative, anti-drug suburban idiot who's in favor of the drug war now because drugs are bad, and okay, why might as well make it illegal. If it has if you're paying $10,000 a year out of your taxes for it, even a drug warrior might think, is it really worth paying $10,000 a year or $20,000 a year or whatever it is to stop people from smoking weed? No, let that one go. Yeah. So I can see how Bitcoin would even end the drug war. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's a great point. It's it's interesting how it just brings so much to light. The other thing I think about a lot is we've been forced into using the best of the worst among fiat currencies. That's why when you see one of these economies go into hyperinflation or economic crisis, they tend to dollarize. They latch on to the strongest fiat currency available. But Bitcoin seems like it'll do something different, because now we have this kind of irrepressible barometer of inflation, whereas before countries could just inflate in lockstep. And as long as they did it in a somewhat concerted fashion, that people were just blinded by the illusion. But Bitcoin, there's something deep about it where it does seem to be, rooted in truth or consensus. Nothing is hidden, I guess you might say, which with all these fiat systems, it's all about deception, right? Force and deception. So.
And not only, there's another problem I wonder people don't talk about as much. There must be massive counterfeiting going on in the world. I mean, illegal counterfeiting.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because every country has a printing press. So I imagine there's dozens of countries in the world that have the ability to print US dollar bills, $100 bills, and they must be doing it.
Yeah.
So in addition to, but Bitcoin can't be counterfeited. That's another benefit of it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing right there, right? Like central banking is a globalized counterfeiting operation. And so Bitcoin fixes that and fixes all the other counterfeiters around it.
I do wonder if some of these countries that tended to dollarize before, I could see the temptation to do it with Bitcoin, but it's perceived as so volatile right now, and it is. And I wonder how much more track record we have to get under our belts, and how much further down the road it has to get in terms of actual absolute price, and maybe in the volatility dampening down enough not to scare people so much. For some sovereigns to flee to it as their only currency. Although I could see some municipalities and small countries starting to do what like MicroStrategy's done, right? Using it as a so let's say a pension fund or a small town, even in the U.S., starting to put some of their money in Bitcoin and adjust to bail themselves out of their upcoming deficits, right? And to quit losing money on low yield bonds and other things that they hold. My hope is that will build in a constituency that will make it harder and harder politically for the state to try to ban it. Like, once thousands of counties or cities or whatever, school districts and pension funds in the U.S. have significant Bitcoin on their assets, then it may be like the Uber thing. It may be too late for the government to try to ban it at a certain point.
Yeah, I would say that, and just the success of experiments like the Bitcoin City in El Salvador, where they basically zeroed out all the taxes, I think, except a 10% flat sales tax. You would expect there to be an economic boom there, and other cities and polities will see this and replicate it. And Yeah, I think this mimetic wave related to Bitcoin is going to be very powerful. It already has been at the individual level, so we're just going to see how it plays out.